It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent his messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque, then in the same church, in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, the path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness. By giving will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there, to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle, which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and in the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 94th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. It's Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, and this is a broadcast from the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Education Department and part of the Public Teachings in English. I'm one of your hosts today, Rick Crammond, and we have Flint Mulhausen as well. And I think we're helped with Peggy and perhaps several others in the background. And of course, we're joined with Ms. Carolina Keshe of the Keshe Foundation. And I believe she is ready to go for today's workshop. Hello, Carolina. Are you still connected?
Yes, Rick. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you all have your nice cup of coffee ready for a joyful time together on the table of sharing knowledge, opening books, opening knowledge again and again until we have the full understanding among each other about the different aspects. I have listened over and over again to the last Thursday morning teaching of Mr. Keshe. And at 2 o'clock, he is presenting. You have a feedback from me, Rick, or not?
I think it's okay. There was a slight echo or somebody coming in there, but I think it was okay. Go ahead. If you get, no, now we're getting some feedback. If you turn down the speakers or
No, it was an open mic. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I gave everybody mic access here so they could talk.
So it's not me.
No.
Okay, but I might be
Gianni.
dropping, so it might go up and down. Just let me know, please, because I cannot always see the meter of the antenna, but I have noticed several times today it just can drop and then it comes back, but you're never gonna lose me permanent. It's just the network being funny with me today. And at the 2-hour session, Mr. Keshe is opening so much information, especially about our planet, especially about our condition, and what we need to understand. So I started Monday in the ethos class and then in the soul teaching, opening up the commandments again. Because apparently a lot of people don't understand the content or how to place the commandments. And I even had funny questions like, why you're going to take or create duality or restrict people, or this is only about religion. Now we have to put this one very straight, because prophets have nothing to do with religion. That's number one. Because the one who delivered or was supposed to deliver the content of the completion of the commandments, which are meant for humanity as a guideline for you yourself. And his name was Moses. He did not carry a stamp of being a Muslim, a Catholic, a Hindu, a Buddhist. That was not connected. We all know him as the prophet at his dispensation to bring this knowledge. You can go back to Mr. Keshe's explanations in his teachings why they were never delivered completely. So Mr. Keshe, as he promised, that everything would come on the table, we would have the complete and the understanding and the explanation why. So commandments, we call them commandments. Somehow, some way they have received that kind of name. But they are the guidelines for humanity to conduct on soul level. But the second one is also soul level, but in the physicality soul level. So we start opening them up, and only in a few people struggle, because it can go either way, but the initial information sits very straightforward. So if we can start with the first one today, as we already reached more or less number 9, 10, we were still in discussion point, but you never know if anyone has any questions specifically what was not understood in the private teachings. We went through these in the private teachings. It's a separation of complete away from any religion. It's to understand as a knowledge seeker, especially with what Mr. Keshe brought last Thursday, to make the understanding how to implement it in your own day-to-day life and what you can do with it and how you can proceed with it. So if you could bring me the first one up. And this is the first one Mr. Keshe has delivered. And there it says, and that came to a realizing in the other teachings, in the other platforms which we covered, Monday and Tuesday, thou shalt not lie should have been the first commandment that should be delivered to humanity. And Mr. Keshe said, if it had been released, it would have changed a lot of things for the man. Because as we were going through number 1 to number 10, it keeps on going back and forth, because I never stay with one commandment. I always go and link the contradiction or where the information should be linked with one another to open it up in a discussion platform that people can learn and take what they need from it. And I try to not allow the knowledge seekers to walk into the directions of what they have learned through the religion point of view. Because commandments were delivered by a prophet, not by a religion. So it's pure content of learning, understanding, applying, but how. So if you could go back to number 1, which were the first 10 which were delivered by Moses, because the rest was not delivered. Thank you. I do not know if it's Rick or Flint running the screen.
I've got it here. Let me see. Let's see.
Thank you. I just to know to whom to address that I don't shout Flint, but I have the right name, Rick.
Yeah, you can just click on that picture. It'll bring it right up. And then I think you can click again on it, right? There you go.
I would love to inform that there are different versions of this one, which are very confusing. So I didn't get this one in the private teaching, because this makes it much easier to work with. It's more simplified, and this is what I remember being taught when I was a child. I am the Lord your God. We also have to understand the time and the period when these commandments were delivered. If anybody has any questions, then we move on to number 2. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything. I think everyone has come to understand that it means don't make an image of somebody else to worship, to pray to adore, to bow to. Nobody has any questions about this one? Okay. Please put your hand up. I know my 2, 3, 4 people which are coaching this platform, keep an eye on. When you put your hands up or you open your microphone, please do so.
Yeah, I gave everybody mic access, so they can just open their mic.
Excuse me?
I gave everybody mic access, so they can open their mic.
Yeah, no problem. That's why I'm trying to remind people that they can speak up. Even if it's a little bit delayed, it doesn't matter. If you can't access straight away, we go back to where your question belongs to. Number 3.
Caroline,
Yeah.
Carolina, it's Doug here. Just
yes.
at commandment number 2, having experience in India, and I know in other places, that one's going to cause people a lot of trouble, because there's hundreds and hundreds of temples and idols, if you want to call them. They call them deities. They have a protocol where those idols are turned into deities and are said to have the qualities of the creator or God in them. They're not considered to be matter state. So how would that be addressed, and how would that be digested by the millions and millions of people that some would call idolaters or worshipping idols, but the people that are doing that, they don't consider that at all. So can we talk about that a bit, maybe?
That is where the separation comes of the understanding that is created by religion. Has nothing to do with the commandments. It's for the knowledge seekers to see where they can embed them in their life. And because we are with so many knowledge seekers, we can start the change. Because we are a family, we are more than one. And by reaching that expansion of understanding, you change slowly the field strength somewhere else. It is very nicely explained by Mr. Keshe. I will keep on referring to last Thursday. He says, if I reposition myself, you will feel it because you got to reposition yourself. It's like with Rick playing with the magnets on the table. If I change my position, all the others have to change position. That's why when you bring it on the table and it's understood by the knowledge seekers, then they start trying to see where it fits in their day-to-day and what they have maybe not understood, or where they can start, exercising with it, where it can fit and how the results are. What does it show if they do follow these guidelines? So never mind, because otherwise you're going to get lost into the Catholic Church is still putting the cross up, the Buddhists are putting Buddha up, all the other religions have somewhere, some point where they're going and having a reference to where they bow to and where they pay respect to. But it's a figure, it's a figurine. So if you don't supposed to make an image to bow down and to pay respect, it's the point of understanding that you don't put yourself below. That's why also when you face somebody, you don't bow. You look straight from eye to eye because you are equal. No one is higher or lower than anyone else, let alone yourself. That is the respect what needs to, or the wisdom that needs to be gathered by the knowledge seekers themselves, because in a lot of cultures, it's a twist between the two and they can't differentiate who they are and what that belief system has brought into them. That's why I try, and I made it very clear, when knowledge seekers bring the religions in, I said, this has nothing to do with the religion. This is brought by a prophet, and that was his dispensation. And what is the meaning of it? Very pure and simple. And how can we apply it every day into our lives? So never mind where else it is happening or taking place. We don't judge, we don't. Everyone is in the state where they are at this given moment, but you knowledge seekers know why this has appeared, why it has appeared. Because Mr. Keshe said it in a very beautiful way, that is, you lower yourself towards somebody else. And last Thursday, it came on the table very clear. There should be no kingships. There should be no emperors. There should be no rulers, because you put yourself below, as you cannot govern yourself. These tablets or this information or these commandments or these guidelines, whatever you want to give them the name, their functionality is to go back towards yourself and to elevate yourself. Does that make sense for you?
Yes, Carolina, I agree. And my experience with all of that that temple life is that it's all designed to make a lot of wealth and money for the so-called priests. And people throw their valuables into those deities, those idols, those and they bow to the priests, they bow to the idols, and they're just getting robbed basically of their dignity. And the priests close the doors at the end of the day and count up the loot, and they're very, very wealthy.
But that's exactly where we don't want to go. What
That's
they
right.
do, how they do, they are responsible for their understanding and their level of understanding. They know very well what they do, and it's not up to us to say whether it's right or it's wrong. It's what do you take from these tablets as a knowledge seeker, and where do you see the change? Where can you implement them into your day-to-day life in the understanding? That's why we're opening them up. Because other times, or other ways, it's just what you already know. Where does the essence comes to you? Because you can go back, and it's always, as Mr. Keshe said, don't stick to the story. You know the story, review your story, and start fresh again. Start from your new, with what you are going to implement from your level of understanding. Because it came through one of the teachings that a lot of the tablets or commandments were not fully understood because people were trying to, in a way, justify why they are there anyway. And it rang a bell. I said, these should come back on the table for the full understanding. So, can we go to number 4?
Hello, Caroline.
Yeah.
This is Lawrence from Hungary. I've been thinking around these images and gods that we've been creating, and I have a question which stems from the history of Earth. As far as I've understood from different teachings from indigenous cultures, is that humanity is the fourth humanity on Earth, or the fourth version of biological life, or whatever we may call it. We had different previous versions of humanity earlier. And as far as I understood, there have been some cataclysms on Earth, which led to some of the people to go underground, and some other people who were advanced in knowledge take the space route and go out in the universe. And as far as I've understood, Mr. Keshe explained that you can't enter someone else's spaceship. So I think all the people, after a while, who went into space came back to teach the people who remained on Earth. But because of their difference in evolution, they appeared to them in a different state. And with their advanced knowledge that they brought back, because they were able to go to space from Earth in the beginning, they seemed to be different people. They appeared as gods, or whatever we might call them at that time. And the question is how to reconciliate the transfer of advanced knowledge with being equal. Because on the knowledge level, or the level of understanding, there is a difference in how humans are evolved, but in terms of their spirituality, their souls, we are all equal. How does it fit?
If you remember what Mr. Keshe said, he said, we are the grandchildren. So that is a confirmation of the 4th generation, isn't it? We are the grandchildren of this planet. So whatever was, whatever went on, we are now, we are today. Yesterday does not exist anymore. But what we decide today is what we will go create tomorrow or instant. It will start creating the move.
I think there's another aspect too, that perhaps we don't have to go to space to get the knowledge of space. In other words, we don't have to go there in the physicality and then learn all this knowledge out in space and then bring it back, because we can go there in our soul now. So we don't have to even build a spaceship to go to space, and we don't necessarily have to get off the planet in order to access that knowledge, I believe.
The point I wanted to make is that we as humanity, or the life on Earth, needs to become peaceful. That critical mass that then shifts the Earth or the solar system to become peaceful, so that the fields are balanced. And the question is, all these commandments, as they've been taught earlier, most probably in the previous generations too, what is the step that needs to be done so that that peaceful state, that critical mass, is achieved?
If you listen to last Thursday morning teaching, you will know the answer sits there. And he starts explaining it from very specific from the hour 2 in the teaching. The answers are there. What you just were putting as a question down, go to last Thursday teaching, you will find it there. Start listening from around 2 o'clock, 2 hours within the teaching, or a little bit earlier. You will just fall right on top of it. Mr. Keshe is very specific in that one. And in previous teachings, you're right, Rick, he has explained that the universal community can take you with your soul to go right across the universes. You never need to even to leave this planet, because your soul is free. It doesn't have a cage. It can travel. But it's the maturity, and Mr. Keshe also said that that's why I'm referring you to last Thursday teaching, that you will not achieve this point of that until we have no more kings and emperors, and we don't need to be leading by somebody else or led by somebody else. You find your answers in there. If you can, please keep an eye on all Thursday morning teachings from now on, because they will really open a lot of doors in wisdom about these aspects of the universal community and how humanity can set themselves free and how the freedom can come. No more questions?
Yes,
Mark? Senora Caroline. Go ahead.
Just a second, Dan. I'll just say the comment from Mark in the chat here, which is interesting. He says the UBESU, which stands for the Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit, allows us to practice interactions rather than fumble around when you get to space. And I thought, wow, that's pretty profound. That's great. That's the way I see that unit. It's like a transition, a place to, oh, he says that's Mr. Keshe's words. Okay, thank you, Mark. I thought you had that clarity there today, but you had the clarity enough to bring the words of Mr. Keshe, I suppose. Thank you. So rather than fumble around when you get to space, that's a very, very interesting idea. However, we need to refocus back on commandments in that sense. So go ahead, Dan, with what you're saying there.
From the good morning, good day, everybody. In the first commandment of Moses, why said, I am the Lord your God? Why don't say, I am the Lord, or I am God? Why your God? You have the possibility, it's collegiate to second commandment. You shall have not other God beside me, which means my soul, choose, have it or not to have it, only one or only the God. This is the rhetoric question. And the other question is, who, it's soul of Moses or the creator sending this commandment, because this Lord or God, perhaps it's my soul, myself, my proper soul.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. I think I remember that from being a child in Sunday school and having a conflict with that idea. But it does say, I am the Lord your God. So it's referring back to you, whatever your God is, in a way, the highest of gods in you, the way you recognize yourself. But yeah, there's a problem there with that, I think. But Carolina,
Yeah.
can
you can say, sorry.
It says, I am. What did Mr. Keshe say in his teaching? He said, you can. I am.
You can say, I am God, or I am, like I say, Lord, which means I am myself, or no, when I say I am. Okay, this is first part. You can say,
when you say,
Lord,
when you say I am, yes, who do you speak to? It's you. I am. You state, I am the Lord, your God. That is the confirmation what you are.
Yes, in this manner.
If everybody goes around and says, I am the Lord, your God, to everyone else, though, that's, that's breaking rule number 2, isn't it?
No.
I also agree.
It's a confirmation I am.
Well, you should have left it at I am. It should have been just, number 1 should have been I am, period. You don't have to say your God or the Lord or all these other connotations that key in. Like back in those times, the Lord would have been the Lord of the land, probably the landowner. He was considered God at that time, and so on and so forth. So it's a different sort of relationship to the words in a way. Maybe that's why we're getting confused with it.
I don't think there is any confusion, because if you have followed the soul teachings of Mr. Keshe, these commandments should be very straightforward towards yourself, because now you know who you are. This is where the confusion, maybe I didn't say that when we started, is that some of these commandments, I did say, they're all on soul level. They're all meant on soul level, not in the physicality. Although they sound physically, because you're the one who's going to carry it out in the physicality.
Right. I guess that's it. That's the division there. We tend to identify with the words and get caught up in the physicality of it and so on, rather than just being like Dan recognized that I am, but he had issues with the rest, as I brought up too. So that's because we got identified with, you know, our particular meanings of the words and our, you know, previous associations with religion, and all this stuff comes into it. But if we drop all that and just stick with the I am and recognize that the soul end of it, then that's the way to go with this. Yeah.
Rick, if you, because a lot of people have interpreted it, most probably, correct me if I'm wrong, that Moses was who was saying, I am the Lord your God.
The soul of creator, it's a messenger, Moses, the prophet. It's soul inside of soul of prophet.
I didn't know.
Sorry, you're both breaking up there. Come again.
It's like
no. When he was coming with the commandments down and he was start introducing them, how would it have started? I have no problem. My network is full. I should be stable for this moment. If, like Moses comes to deliver these commandments, I think everyone who was listening to these first 10 commandments, it would like to be like Moses didn't explain. When he says, I am the Lord your God, and he's the one who's speaking it out, they must have referred to him as a God. Correct?
It's like a playing. No, if you miss one of these words, you can say, I am your God, I am the God, I am Lord God, I am just only your. It's
these
Lord.
Are guides. These, you have to understand, these are guidelines for you to conduct yourself. So I am, which means you, because you speak the commandment out. You don't hear it from me telling you that I am the Lord your God. I don't say that to you because that's not what the message is. The message is when you read the commandment as it is intended to be the guideline for you personally, how do you read it? Because when I read it, it says to me, I am the Lord your God, which means I acknowledge that I am. I don't need to go and tell nobody, because these commandments are the guidelines for you personally, not for you to become a teacher or a preacher or to do a copy of what they all have done, which it has gone wrong. I said from the beginning, the commandments are for the knowledge seekers to interpret them themselves, to apply them in their day-to-day life. It's only when you have not understood the meaning of the content of the commandment that we are opening it up. Now, maybe that makes it much more clearer, because when I read it, it sounds completely different. I don't need to tell you, to you, I am the Lord your God, because that's not what I'm proclaiming. That's not what this explanation or opening of the commandments means, whatever it means for you as an individual. If you read it, what does it mean to you?
It's the soul.
Not to somebody else, not for you to pass them on to somebody else. It's what have you understood? How do you apply it with all the previous teachings and explanations of Mr. Keshe? What does it mean to you? Not to start questioning if I go and proclaim to other people to say, I am the Lord your God. That's not what you do. I said from the minute we started, it's you, for you, yourself only, your conduct. Otherwise, you judge other people's conduct, how they're going to respond, because you're the messenger, because you're not. It's for your personal interpretation that I'm opening them up again and again, and maybe in a few months' time again. Because there was a huge confusion in a few of them. And if you go again to you yourself, you shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything, which means you don't, if it is to me, it means I have to understand not to go make an image of something and then go and worship it. Very clear to me, myself, right? I don't preach it to nobody else. I'm repeating what do I understand when I read the context? What does it mean for me? That's why even in the private teachings, I excluded any interference from whatever happens anywhere else, and definitely not connected to no religion. Because at the point of this dispensation of Moses, there was no religion. It was a bringing of a gift from the universal community through one man, which was called Moses, which we call a prophet. What did he bring? He brought knowledge for humanity to elevate. All the rest we know. Because the way you talk is like it's in the hand of a priest, and then you see where you're going. And that is exactly what I would love you not to do. Read it yourself, and what does it say, the confirmation to you yourself? Not to me, not to somebody else. When you read it, it says, I am, which means me, Caroline. It says to me, I am the Lord your God. Because of Mr. Keshe's teachings, we know now where that God sits. It's within us.
This is the beauty, because you
exactly.
you are able to making. You are the creator. No, you shall not make for yourself another idol, another form or anything. You are creator.
Exactly.
You can create it, but you, like you shall not have other. You are the God. No.
You not worship something else.
If I am the God, no, what is needed have it the other, no, it's me, it's okay. It's like two souls in the one soul, because it's in soul level, this.
Hello?
But that's what happened. This is what we know.
Hi there. Hello.
Yes.
It's they are all on soul level.
Hi there.
Because each one which gets read is to you yourself. Who's speaking?
Hi there. This is Jimon. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. I just wanted to mention something in the same field. I also felt the contradiction in that the way Dennis brought it up, and I thought it's my broken English, but and thank you for that, Dan. But Carolina, you also break it down very beautifully, and I think in the best way I can interpret it of what you said is that it says the I, as I, the God, in the soul level, is speaking to me in the physical, in the physicality, calling it a you, and that's how it makes sense. Otherwise, I would have thought about it if I think a physicality speaking to physicality, then would you means someone speaking to others.
Yeah, but it isn't.
But when you break it down like this, for me it's quite clear that it's the I in the soul level is speaking to I in the physicality and call it the you. That's what my thought about it, and it actually makes sense now.
Anybody else?
Yes. if I can. Hello, everybody. I talk too much. You stop me when you want. I think in the context of the time, maybe 3,500 years ago, and I think it's one of the first time in the history that somebody came and said there's one God. Because before there were different gods for different usages. And it's the first time. So they sent Moses. These people said, no, it's hardship. We want to see your God. He said, okay, stay here 40 days. I go up the mountain and I bring you something. He went up there and he took longer than 40 days. And these people started to make a calf of all the goals women had, everybody had, and made this calf their God. And they worshiped him every day. Oh my God, give me prosperity. The gold calf, the call of the gold. And when Moses came
Mehran, I do apologize, but we are not going to go into stories told by stories, which we do not know. In fact, if they are even correct. No, darling, we don't want to go that way because it doesn't make sense.
No, I mean,
we are just.
That's why when he came, he had to emphasize, I am the Lord your God. The God which says
No, Mernas, you can put words into a context which is not there to be confirmed.
Yeah.
Please don't.
So,
we were not there. The only thing is, Mr. Keshe has said that they were not complete. The commandments are to be interpreted by you individual, not by storytelling. Because the storytelling has come through different ways and cannot be verified. So we don't go that way because none of us can verify them. So please, we don't go there.
This was the Quran way of explaining it. So, I mean, in the context where there were many gods, he said, I bring you the message that
Mernas, please, darling, I asked you not to go there because this is just storytelling. I want to stick just to the essence of the commandments, that every single person can understand when he reads it personally, what does it mean to him? Not to what happened 3,500 years ago, because that is of no reference to the understanding of you today. And we can't even verify any of those stories. They are stories. What does the commandment applies to you today with all the teachings and all the explanations of Mr. Keshe's teaching, why they are there on the first place? So verifying and trying to come from wherever, we don't want to go there. We want to stick to the commandment, the way it's written down. What does it implement to you? What do you understand or not understand when you read one commandment after another? That way, we can go through all the commandments today within this platform and to at least make sure that majority of the knowledge seekers will have understood and can put their questions with what they need to know about each commandment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It means for me that I am, only I, one Lord, your God. Only I am your God.
Understood.
Pardon?
So now we can go to which one can go. Remember the Sabbath by holy. What
Yeah.
Sabbath
Sorry, you
day
broke up.
means for
Oh,
you
Sabbath.
yourself. To me, for me personally, it says, come out for yourself to contemplate. Now, in today's language.
Sorry, you're breaking up, Carolina. Could you say that again?
Everybody understands that one? Or anyone has any?
I didn't understand what you said, what it means to you. It broke up there and I couldn't hear. Still there, Carolina? I think she's dropped out or something.
Yeah, she dropped. She'll be back in a minute.
Oh, okay. I note that Elias had his hand up earlier and he put a statement in into the chat saying our soul is the Lord our God. I think that's what you're probably trying to say desperately say with your hand up there, Elias. You can talk if you like there.
Yeah, that was my exact thought right now. Every time it mentions Lord, that's you. That's your soul. Something, maybe not every specific time, but I remember, well, just to share a quick story, you know, I was probably in 4th, 3rd grade or whatever, and the teacher asked us about, you know, who are you? And I had been reading the Bible with the family, and, you know, I said, and the kids started saying who they thought they were. And so I said, I'm a person made in the image of God. And then the teacher just said, that's interesting. Anyone else? But didn't even sort of address it at all. But you go back to Jesus where he said, ye are gods. And when I tell people this that are religious and so on, they want to fight me on this. They want to say, no, he didn't mean that. Go ahead, dear.
The beauty, I'm sorry, I got kicked out. The beauty sits in now, today. What do we comprehend with the commandments? The application in nothing to do with no religion. How to integrate them into your today life.
Instant. Every day it's the present, eternal presence. And don't forget, which means it's keeping. For keeping is needed not put in effort. It's for keeping something in soul level, in emotion, inside my soul, which means I remember I am fully conscious for this state, because when you don't know, it's hard to keep in something. When you're not knowing the totality, like I say.
So, shall we go to number 5? Maybe Rick, you can read it for me, please.
Okay. The 5th commandment, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord God gives you.
I think everybody has understood that. Also beyond your father and your mother, because it's more included in the father and the mother.
The other field with make the confirmation or myself like a soul, and it's collegated with the day, with the previous, be longer day, and land.
What have we learned through Mr. Keshe's teaching that is also the mother?
You can have one field, but is turning. You have two field. You are the middle layer.
No.
The creator.
Mother Earth.
The mother,
Earth.
mother, where do we belong to? The earth. We are
Inside of totality.
her children. We are her children. The planet is from where we are coming from, belonging to. It's also the mother. So honor. And your father, we already know that that is the son.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only your birth mother and your birth father, but it's all who belongs to your creation. So, Rick, shall we go to number 6?
Yes, I think we covered that one. Number 6, you shall not murder.
That was a very interesting one.
Don't breathe, don't eat.
Yeah. With no excuses from no point of view from anyone personally.
I break all the law, these law commandments. I saying this, and I say in my soul, I breaking every commandment. Is needed to reposition for myself for
I think we all have come to understand what it really truly means in its fair simplicity. And that is where we are going onto the path of implementing this. Through the knowledge we have received from Mr. Keshe, that will all become available to all of us. I think there are no questions or any dispute in why and how, through all the teachings of Mr. Keshe, what does that really mean? They shall not murder.
I have field of zinc oxide is not needed. Adulter 7, I have also the zinc field is not needed. I feel good. I not steal because I have everything. Is comparing plasma state. Every word I compare in the field, in the soul, in the not matter, in the higher level.
And as I understand it, the worst thing you could do, Mr. Keshe said, is kill a man. Because if that's your enemy and you killed him, now you just released his soul. And now you have to deal with a non-tangible, non-dimensional enemy until the souls get balanced. So I think a lot of the troops, PSTD and so on, is associated, and many other things are associated with that, which is not taken into consideration.
So, shall we move to the next one?
I was just going to mention before we move on that perhaps there is a distinction between the deliberate act of taking a life and something that happens accidentally in the course of life. Like if you accidentally step on an ant is different than deliberately going out of your way and crush one, for example. Okay, let's move on to number 7. You shall not commit adultery.
Anybody, any questions in regards this one? Or shall I explain it the way I explained it yesterday? Then it makes it very easy for people to have the right view on it.
I'd like you to explain it, and then I have a question from your previous explanation.
Okay. You shall not commit adultery, which means if you are in a relationship or commitment, that commitment can be various. It can be living with a partner. It can be married to a partner. It's the commitment, the agreement you have with one another, with being together. If we put it into a marriage, it makes it much easier for a lot of people to understand. Before you commit yourself to a third party, girl or man, depends if you are a man or a girl, and you fall in love with that other person, you should, to prevent the word adultery, you should put it on the table with the person you are committed to. In full honesty, to put the books straight on the table. That brings the one which Mr. Keshe explained that should have been the first one to be delivered, that shall not lie. It means in full honesty to open it up to your partner, which you are committed to, that this is taking place so that they can position themselves in the realization of what is going on before it takes place. Also, the other person which is getting involved in this should go and make the same steps, that you're sure that they have done the same if they are in a relationship, to be open and straightforward with their partners in case they are in a partnership. That is in its full simplicity not to commit adultery. It's very simple and very straightforward. Then there is no adultery because your partner has been informed, and then you can make the commitment, or you can even change, or your whole relationship with your commitment or with your partner can change from that point, because you can open the discussion why and how, and maybe it won't even go that way, because you might have situations that because of this can be opened up on the table. Or there can be a release from one to another in this commitment. Anybody, any questions? Or is that enough explained in its simplicity? Nobody?
Well, I said I had a follow-up. So it says thou shall not commit adultery, which is the best scenario. But and I don't think a lot of adultery is committed spontaneously, but it may. But I think a lot of it leads up to that point. Now, would it be better if you said if you brought after the fact, that then it's not adultery because you laid it out on the table very clearly?
Before
the fact. Okay, that was my question.
Of course, because if you have done the act, it's too late.
Okay, that was my question. Okay. I thought it was to bring after the fact, and then it was.
No. You can withhold or restrain yourself when these feelings are there and it occurs. That's where you need to be in your point of strength to stop and to inform the one which is involved in this that you first gonna have to talk with your partner or the person who you're committed to, and the best advice is that person also needs to debrief his partner, because you will not walk into, because if you go with her, you commit, and she hasn't debriefed her partner on her side or his side, then you're still in the same shamble. It has to go both ways. Then everyone is on the same level of understanding. Before, not after. Once it's committed, it's already too late.
Okay, that was my question.
It's the strength of the honesty. Thou shalt not lie.
And if people are already in that really intense relationship where that sort of commandment is number one, that thou shalt not lie, then they'll know right away if there's what they call a break in the force, Luke, you know, a disconnect or some sort of attention is going somewhere else, sort of thing. So when you're in that relationship where you're open and not lying, then it's natural to inform the other person, hey, I've got these feelings and I want to take action on it or something, you know, to that effect. Or just to say, you know, I have these feelings, but I'm decided not to take any action on that. So don't worry and don't be concerned. I'm, you know, totally committed to you or whatever. So all the different relationships have different conditions, as Carolina outlined there.
But aren't the souls already informing each other on the partners and so on? But you're saying you have to confirm it in the physicality?
Because that's where the whole thing is. You got to conform in your physicality.
Yeah. Do you actually feel something? And in that case, it's usually through the physicality that those feelings are felt.
No, but in other words, the souls already communicated that to each other way before you do it or anything. The souls already know, I think.
Of course.
They're one soul. It's one soul. That's why.
Of course.
And when you get in a really committed relationship with someone, that's, you know, you become one soul. And people even refer to you as the couple, you know, or they make your name, the two names of the couple is almost like one word. They refer to them as one entity. A shaman sees them as one entity, a couple, and addresses them as one entity.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but we know there's two separate souls. I never understood how 1 + 1 makes one.
They're not separate.
Plus one makes
that's my point. The souls aren't separate. That's my point. There is no separation when you're truly in a committed relationship with someone that you are bonded with in the soul level. And you sometimes you can't even tell who's who. You forget that it's actually two of you and not just one entity. It's always we are going to here, we're going to, yes, we're we. And it's because they're both including each other always.
Okay, I thought it was separate souls, and that even if one wanted to depart, no matter how much they were in love or how close they were, it has its own life and it's going to do it.
Absolutely. So you give that other person the complete freedom at any moment, even though you're intimately bonded and truly committed at the same time. The complete freedom to leave at any moment, because that is where the love really comes in, even though you really want to be with someone, but at the same time, you have to grant them the ultimate freedom to leave at any moment if they so wish, or to be with someone else if they so wish, without jealousy, without envy, without anger, without all of those lower emotions, because they don't come into play if you're truly bonded and allow that total inclusion, but at the same time, you have to be able to let it go at any moment. It's a very difficult position to be in, and very touchy emotionally, because if you ever descend into the lower emotions, then that's where the chaos breaks out, and that's where the commandments start to take on different.
Okay, we all have
And
understood.
I would like to, yeah, I would like to make also another point. Like, what if someone start a relationship with somebody, and afterward he realized the other person is already involved in another relationship. I didn't know, before. So, but maybe this person could feel guilty for not having found out before, or maybe, I don't know. But she's
No,
not.
that's not your problem.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Right. Someone was lying, and someone was feeling guilty, and someone was feeling lower emotions and all of that. And that's not what we're getting into with what Caroline's trying to present today. Yeah.
If the other one doesn't know, or if you don't know that the other one is in a relationship and you have no awareness of it, don't feel guilty. And that's his problem or her problem, not you.
Okay, this is a good point. Okay, thank you.
Very straightforward, because that's the concealing of the truth towards you. Nothing to do with you.
Thank you.
But you are responsible for the minute you know.
Yeah, this is it. I think in everything you're responsible. So the moment we know this commandment, we are responsible. The moment we become aware of the others, what Mr. Keshe gave us as knowledge, then we are responsible. We cannot
then your responsibility is your position within that relationship. Once you find out, then it becomes your responsibility as well. As long as you didn't know, it's fine. But the minute you know, you have to act upon it. That's where your responsibility comes in.
Okay, very good. Because I can see this with everything that we got to learn.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Next one, number 8.
Number 8, you shall not steal.
Yep. And that's where the tricky one comes as well, because Mr. Keshe has added something to it, which people were only thinking in the matter state about this one. Thou shalt not steal, because most of the stealing goes through your own soul. Now, if we have understood all the above, just only all the above, commandments, there is your guideline where not to steal, because it's explained in the adultery, it's explained in not killing something, it's explained in the honoring of your father. So in number 5, it is honoring in number 4, it's honoring in number 3, and it's honoring in number 2, and definitely in number 1. Thou shalt not steal, which means when you go off the path, which we try to bring so many examples of what we know, that is where you start in small portions to steal. It's not only the one in the physicality that you go and steal a bar of chocolate and you don't pay for it, and the manager has to put the money from his own pocket into the cashier, and then he would love to have that chocolate to take home for his daughter or boy, but he can't because he had to put it in the casa to cover that he doesn't look as a embezzler for his boss. So where have you started the path of stealing? We all know that kind of path. You are losing tenfold. Why would you even steal? People have apparently not understood that one. But then there is another one, which I explained in a very simple way. That is, let's say you have 4 people on the table, and they're friends. Now you imagine they start talking and telling stories to one another. Now you have your four souls sitting like a ghost that you can imagine on top of you, but they're also having a conversation. And one of the people says to the other one, "Oh, I caught 2 big fishes yesterday when I went fishing." And the one who sits next to him knows that he only took 2 small fishes. But at the same time, this is the conversation in the physicality. You have the 4 souls sitting on top of you. And at the same time, the soul from the guy who is telling the story says to the other souls, there he goes again. That is incorrect. He only took 2 small fishes. Now, if you want to understand where you steal from your soul in a hilaric way, or a very simplistic way, if I may explain it that way, you look at where your souls are holding a bank account. It's your saving account. That lie telling to the other one is that your soul is keeping a record of whatever you do. They are all there. They're all witnessing what is said, how it's done, how you act, how you behave. And when you behave like this, you're telling a lie. So you can't hide it from your soul. So when Mr. Keshe explained that you only face your soul when you go to the next phase of your existence, that is the bookkeeper of your life. So he has registered everything. So in very simplistic way of explaining, let's say you have lost 10 euro from your saving account by telling, instead of 2 big fishes, to be correct and say, I caught 2 little ones. That's where the fact comes that your soul doesn't steal. Your soul cannot lose, because your soul keeps the books straight and converts it into knowledge. The knowledge is that somewhere down the line, you're going to have to fulfill the 10 euro you lost. But the payment is always tenfold for you to learn to understand you should not lie. And you definitely should not steal from yourself, because you don't steal from nobody else but except yourself. And again, I will refer to last Thursday morning teaching, where he explains this kind of procedure. There, Mr. Keshe has explained it very well. So, how can you steal from yourself? And where shall you not steal? I think you can do it in a matter state, but the worst one is in, and it still is in your soul level. Because in the matter state, if you take it in the physicality, it doesn't matter. When you speak it, it still is in the matter state. But it reflects on soul level in your book, because your soul keeps order what is going on. So that should be a very nice guidance when you walk, when you talk, when you behave, when you think, before you do something, that you have somebody who is trying to keep you straight. Somebody who's guiding you, above you, which is always present. And he's aware of everything. So why even trying? That's why these commandments are so beautiful, when you start understanding, when you read them to yourself and then can implement them on yourself, because it safeguards you, not your neighbor, nobody else, because you're the one who is in the control point of you shall not steal. I hope I have been able to explain it in a very simplistic way, because a lot of people will not understanding, how can you steal from my own soul? Well, from morning till evening, your conduct depends. Always remember the book of your soul. She keeps the record, or he keeps the record of whatever you do, how you do, and where it keeps it in order. You're the one who keeps your books straight or not. Anybody, any questions?
I just I did a bookkeeping course once upon a time, and you at the end of every period of time, you have to balance the books. You have to go back and find out where that little bit wasn't there or whatever, and bring it to balance. And I think Mr. Keshe on last Thursday said exactly that comes a time when the books must be balanced. Some people have huge imbalance and some people have comparatively minor imbalances, but all those imbalances have to be sorted, and then and only then can you clear the books, sign off, etc.
You can still do it today. Wherever you remember something somewhere, you can still clear your books. Now, I'm going to take it a step higher because he mentioned it in last Thursday morning teaching. That is that humanity cannot go nowhere as long as there are presidents, kings, and God knows what as heads of states. The reason sat in earlier teachings when he said, if a president, let's say I'm going to take an example, President Xi from China is signing the World Peace Agreement, the peace treaty. He signs all his citizens into the World Peace Treaty. So you know the number, the amount of Chinese people worldwide, they all come to this agreement because he covers all of them. That's where you will start achieving the critical mass passing. That's why Mr. Keshe is arranging all these presentations, all this interfacing with the governments. That is why we are encouraging you knowledge seekers to make those contacts, to make those connections, to write to your governments, to speed up the process, to be present at these presentations, ambassadors or ministers or responsibles from your countries, to bring the news back to their country. Because maybe now you will understand how you can convert so fast such a huge amount of people into a world peace treaty. Because when a head of state or a president or a king or whatever the name is, they cover the whole country they can. But this president cannot sign another country into the World Peace Treaty. He can only sign his own people, which he is responsible for. And that was also a topic on last Thursday morning. Now it creates another view of not stealing. And how to unite to one working soul as a humanity. Okay, nobody, any questions about you shall not steal? Okay, Rick, we go to the next one.
Okay, number 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Yes, that one came in the story, just the one above you, when the guy was telling the story about the fishes and its simplicity, that is also the one who sits next to it, who knew that he wasn't catching 2 big fishes but 2 small fishes. It's up to him to put it as a clarification on the table so that the other 2 will not walk away with the wrong story. That is where in his simplicity explained, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." So always, again, to the number 1, "Thou shalt not lie," in his pure simplicity. Anybody, any questions? We can move on to number 10.
Moving right along. Yes, number 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, wife, or property.
Yes. And Marie brought a very beautiful explanation from Mr. Keshe on the table. That means when you don't covet, you allow the other person to grow and to manifest in his abilities. When you covet, means like wanting to possess, you bring yourself to such a low level because you don't give the freedom to the other one to be above you. And Mr. Keshe says it's better and good to be the stone at the bottom so other people can evolve above you. That is explained in one of his teachings when he said, "You be the giver."
The cornerstone. The foundation.
Coveting, which means you want to possess, you don't give that freedom of that beauty, of that what he can be in all his beauty. That's taking away from the fields. It's again in a way of stealing. You can't steal from the other one, but you're stealing from yourself. It all comes down to you as you. Everybody has understood that one?
The word envy comes into my mind in relation to that, or, you know, that if you envy someone, then you want to bring them, or, you know, stop them from being themselves, and you're jealous of that.
No, you don't stop them. You only lower your own field strength because you're coveting, which means you want to possess what they have. But you don't lower them, you lower only yourself.
Yep.
And then we can move to the next one, Rick, as there are no questions coming on the table. Mr. Keshe has relay this one. "Thou shalt not lie." I think everybody by now understands always to be correct. You can go to number 12, please, Rick.
Okay, number 12 is, "Thou shalt be equal to others, and do not consider thyself higher or lower than them."
That is very well explained in specifically leaderships and where you want to buy or worship or make ornaments or engravings from something else. that you don't put yourself lower nor higher than anyone else. I think everyone has a pretty good idea by now through the teachings of Mr. Keshe what that one means. Nobody any questions? That's also explained on Thursday morning about why there should be no kings. That's the reason, the main reason why this commandment is on the table. Because you give your...
Running and crying for entry in this from elevate the soul. The kingship, that the king is equal with the farmers. Is the naked soul. You are open soul, you are naked, you are open.
Okay, we can go to the next one.
Number 13, the man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies.
Putting everybody in the table in equal way.
Eric, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to have to say goodbye.
Okay.
I thank you and Flint and the knowledge seekers and the support co-hosts. And see you next time. See you tomorrow afternoon in my private class. And tomorrow morning in Rick's class. It was a pleasure to be here. And you can stick to the schedule, Rick, of the time frame. And then we cover the rest next week.
Okay, we'll carry on a little bit here if people would like to, and then we'll wrap things up. Thanks, Caroline. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you very much. I will go back and listen to the last part until you finish, so I am aware what has been discussed. Okay, see you all, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Best wishes for your adventures where you're at there now.
Yes. Thank you very much. See you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, well, here we are. Suddenly without our commander of the ship. That's where the co-pilots come in and the co-hosts and hosts. And I think that we shouldn't go on to the 14th commandment, thou shalt not rape. I think we'll leave that one till next time. But if there's any of the other ones that anyone would like to discuss a bit, then perhaps we can get into that. I note that Flint had a comment earlier, or at least a question regarding the murder commandment, you shall not murder, its application in relation to what we call, or what Mr. Keshe calls, the vertical people, meaning the plants and trees and that which grows upwards, moves upwards rather than horizontally.
Yeah, I'd like to say that murder in the context of our language usually just refers to human beings, and the word, you know, if the broader word is thou shalt not kill, and that can expand to the vertical people and the insects. And, you know, I fall down horribly, actually, in the insect department. And I fall down. Probably the only thing I haven't done is murdered a human being, but I've certainly murdered a lot of vertical people or killed them to eat. And I've certainly killed an awful lot of insects that come into my space, into my house, into my near me. I almost have an involuntary reaction when a mosquito comes near. I use all of my reflexes to exterminate it before it bites me. So I plead guilty to killing, and I hope one day, shortly, more sooner than later, I can get over that prejudice or that fear, so that I can live without killing anything. And the only way I see forward for that is through the plasma and elevation of my soul by whatever means. And, you know, that's what I would say about that. So.
Well, it's a really good point there, Doug, especially with the mosquito. It's something that I have a major aversion from my time with being accosted by mosquitoes, especially when I was younger and out camping and so on. So I have this thought exercise that I go through sometimes and suggest others, that what if you were stuck in a room for eternity, or at least some time that you didn't know if you could ever get out. Somehow you were being fed and your necessities were taken care of, but there's no one else in the room. You've got a bare light bulb and it's very austere. There's nothing there except you and a mosquito. And the mosquito has to feed every day. And you have the choice during that time period that could be eternity in this room with no other being. And you have this one other being, this mosquito, and you have the choice whether to kill the mosquito or to allow it to exist and share your energy, let's say. At the same time, you have a companion in a way. You've got some other entity other than you. Otherwise, you're stuck with you for eternity. So I wonder, you know, what would I do in that circumstance? Would I allow that that being to live because you just need some company in eternity? It gets kind of lonely with only you. So, and in that sense, you know, from a soul perspective, would it not allow that other entity to live, no matter how much it inconvenienced your own physicality? So it's different than if you rolled over in your sleep and accidentally killed a mosquito. That's something that happens in the course of life, and there are accidents. But to deliberately go out and effectively murder this mosquito, it's a different perspective. You have to have intention to do that. You have to have, you know, something is compelling you to take action in the physicality. Is it your soul? Is it your soul that's bothered by the mosquito, or is it your physicality? And then you have to come to the realization, well, if it's my physicality, then am I in control of that, or am I just allowing the physicality to run amok and go swatting, hitting, and whacking anything that's around that it happens to feel like doing that to, which is how many of us run our lives. We are, we rub shoulders with others and get our elbows in, and maybe, some odd comments might fly that are a bit insulting or something else. And, we, as humans, we aren't necessarily always totally aware of the feelings and life and the conditioning of others around us and so on. So
I was thinking, Rick, stuck in the room with the mosquito, a very interesting situation. Wouldn't that be a very, very interesting? Would you eventually come to terms, some kind of an arrangement with that other living being that, I'll let you have a go, but only do it at a certain time, or at a, not just constantly at me. Just look, I'll let you have your little bit. Very interesting. What would you do in that situation? And I think the only answer would be that to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm, exactly. You have to actually put yourself through it to feel those emotions and to understand, do I have my emotions under control? Can I set my intention not to kill this mosquito and follow through on it? Is it going to keep me awake for 3 nights in a row and turn me into a raging maniac? And I consider taking my own life instead of the mosquitoes.
Yeah, there you go. There's
how
another
far is
option.
it going to go? How far? Yeah, there is another option. You don't have to go through all that suffering.
No.
Well,
look, I'll solve this problem right now. I'll kill myself.
That doesn't work. It comes back, you're in the same room, same mosquito. You have to go through the same scenario again and over until you learn the lesson there, which is what is the lesson? To try to coexist and tolerate others is one big thing. Because just reaching out and swatting is not a good way to present yourself to alien structures out in space. The first thing, it looks like a mosquito, swat. But it turns out that was connected to this huge entity that's throughout all of interstellar space, and it felt that, and it now has a certain attention on you because you got its attention now. And you want to play that game? I see now what we're dealing with here, and so on. And maybe it comes back 1,000-fold and 10,000-fold back on you, and so on. So you have to be careful what you swat out there. It's the basic sandbox rules in a way. You don't go and hit kids in the sandbox because, number one, mom won't like it and she'll take you out of the sandbox and you'll have to do your own time somewhere else or something. But number one actually is you learn that it's not good to hit others. You don't get along with them then, and you don't end up having fun. And the idea in the sandbox is to have fun, not to fight. So it's basic sort of rules like that we should have learned when we were kids, but sometimes we didn't get enough sandbox time or complete that learning sequence or whatever.
So somehow we have to learn to make friends with everybody, every entity that we might meet in deep space or wherever we are, rather than create or imagine an enemy,
Well,
that's
right.
That's the lesson.
That is the lesson. So
Hi, boys. Anybody hears me?
Yes, go ahead, Marinus.
I tell you very funny story about the mosquitoes. For the first time, after many, many years, I had mosquitoes because of the parch with water. And I used to, and I'm the only one they were they were picking. And the first days I had, I was really, I said, I cannot continue. And the neighbor said, you have to buy this product. I put the product, but it was chemical. And I put the CO2 and the citronelle. Didn't work. I mean, I didn't do it. And I still continued not to kill them. And somebody came to me, he said, okay, because in the morning they went to salle de bain, and they were on the floor, and I was counting 17 one day. And the morning I opened the door, and with the towel, I tell them to go out. That's the only thing I did. And one day they even picked me 17 around my vein, you know, where there was a lot of what's that? Hemoglobin or whatever. So what I did, I continued. Everybody said, do something. I said no. And it's funny now that you talk about it. It's got handled. Now I'm seeing one around me, and we're friends. It's part of my family. They are not that much. They don't pick me anymore. I have nothing to scratch. And now that you say, really, it was something funny for me. I didn't kill anyone, and it worked wonderfully. So even though I may see one or two sometimes, they are part of the family. They are friends, and it got handled. It got handled, or maybe I had the reaction in my blog that they didn't like it, but I promise you, it got handled. You don't have to kill them. After some time, they become their friends. When they say you are friendly, they become friendly. I mean, that's how I can explain it. But sincerely, now that you think about it, I still live the same place. I don't even think they exist. They're not too much now, but it's part of us, part of the accessories of the house, if they are, and handled. Zero presence. I tell you.
A good story, Mehran. Yeah, exactly. So there might
Thank you, Manas. That's terrific. That's really good. Good story. Excellent.
I'd forgotten about it, but now that you said, do they become friendly one day? It's just a part of family if I see one or two. No idea of killing them. No way. No way. I bring them to hospitals if something happens to them. So handled. No problem. Of course, Keith.
Mernez.
Yes,
it's Peggy.
Yeah.
It ties right in with the 13th commandment. The man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies. It's the unconditional giving from the soul. That's what you're doing with the mosquitoes as well.
Really good point, and that's exactly what it would be in that room with where you're stuck with a mosquito in that situation. And that would be that what you would have to confront in yourself. Can you give unconditionally to even your so-called enemy in this situation? And if you're really good at it, maybe you can even learn to like it, because sometimes we can't change what is, but we can learn to like it. We can change our attitude toward what is going on, so that maybe even I could learn to like a mosquito, which, I could if he only bit me once a day, not several times. Maybe I could get along with that. And it would, if it's a he, then he can't bring his girlfriend in and start making babies, because I don't know, getting bit multiple times, and then it's just one thing leads to another. That could be a problem. but I could see one. I could maybe tolerate one. Even at that buzzy noise in the ear is so irritating. But then we see that's where in that situation, we get to learn all kinds of things about ourselves, our limits of irritation, and how much we can tolerate. And it doesn't matter whether it's a mosquito or some person that's, tends to really irritate you when they talk. It's just like, oh God, there they go again. It's that irritating voice. It drives me crazy. I can't take it. Whatever it is, it's like that buzzing of the mosquito in the ear. And it's like, we might say, I am full of love. I am totally love, incarnated, except for that one person that drives me crazy and I can't stand blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that is not unconditional love. That is love that's conditional on, I'll love everyone except for such and such and such. I can tolerate everything except for this and this and this. And that's usually where the unconditional drops off of the unconditional love phrase, and it drops into a lower form of love, and that becomes part of the physicality and part of the world that's the manifestations of all that.
We, like humanity, you are in the same position, mosquito position, in the community, universal community. In this universe or unicos is the same. In the same room, the community, the big brother with us.
Yeah, right.
I am the mosquito.
And we better hope they're going to be tolerant and compassionate and loving and unconditional love, not conditional on us being irritating, that they'll swat us. Because, I mean, look at most humans compared to the universal community. You can imagine they would be quite irritating, all the religious leaders, the government leaders, and so on, trying to interact, and they'll look right through them and see all their dishonesty and all their lies and all of their various lower manifestations and emotions and so on. You would think they would be tempted to just swat and go off to some other part of the universe where things make more sense. But so far, at least, it seems like we do have compassion and unconditional love, because otherwise we would have already been swatted, I figure. So far, so good.
I think when you're creating condition for elevation, it's kind of impossible to even conceive the killing or hurting or even a bad thought. So it's like the moment that we were in a condition where we elevate, is like impossible to even conceive, to even hurt or anything bad. You just possibly. I think this actually, I remember what happened. What I remember when we were in the motion, like it was impossible for me to think anything bad. It's like when you have those fields for I don't know, those when you're in. I suppose when there were a lot of monatomic fields, your environment is really like it just cancel out automatically any bad thought, you just cannot possibly hurt anyone or cannot possibly even think. You don't even have to consciously kind of correct yourself. It just come automatically. It cannot. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. Sometimes sometimes you're going to see maybe some holy people or some, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where it's just impossible to even conceive because of the fields that are around you.
You see, now that I think about it, I'm not always like this. For some people, I'm not that tolerant immediately. But the thing is, these mosquitoes seem not aggressive, seem like they don't see well, they didn't hear well. I could approach them with some stick. They almost couldn't understand it. You know, they seemed stupid to me. I said, they're not even afraid. I really have to get very close. So maybe they think that they were kind of ignorant, non-reactive, like they were deaf, or
maybe they were elevated mosquitoes that didn't need to seek blood at every moment, you know. Yeah.
But the first days they were like Dracula.
There's hope. There's hope that maybe everything is elevating on this planet, so that as the humans elevate, the animals elevate, they're becoming smarter, more intelligent, and so on. The fish, everything's elevating. Even the mosquitoes are elevating. So maybe they will rise to the point where they no longer have that lust for blood. And as humans do, I mean, most humans have a lust for blood too. We eat animals, many of us, many humans. I don't in particular, but most humans, I would say, in the majority, eat other animals, or birds. So that's, you know, that's another factor that enters into this whole equation too, this idea of you shall not murder. But if you're not, like, for example, children, there's children that they've told a child where the chickens come from and what happens to them in order to make the chicken nuggets or other chicken products that they've been used to eating, or other animals. And they'll let them know that this is what happens. These chickens get raised, they get killed, and then they get, we eat them and process them and so on. And some children will totally react to that, and they'll be grossed out. They can't imagine, they didn't know that an animal had to actually die in order for them to be fed. And so this is a big shock to a young person. Sometimes they stop eating meat. They just no longer eat meat and go to a vegetarian diet. And of course, as we talked about before, then you're in another situation where you have plants that you're eating and other things that might be related to what we call killing or murder in a way. But I think that there's, again, a distinction, as I mentioned before, about the idea if you are essentially ignorant about where the meat came from and what it was all about and so on, or whatever food that you're eating, then in a way you're in bliss. Ignorance is bliss and everything's okay. But once you become aware and conscious of the relationships, and that you have a conscious choice to engage in those relationships or not, or to propagate them and allow that to happen, or to withdraw from that and take your participation away from that particular activity, that's where we have choice, and that's where we have to start using our own discretion about what is unconditional love and what is allowing other beings to exist without taking their lives, or what we call murder. Because if it's done deliberately, essentially it's murder. But if it's accidental in the course of life, that's a whole different, they don't call that murder. They, you know, in legal terms, it wouldn't be murder if you accidentally killed someone because of something that happened that caused something else to happen or whatever. It's a whole different type of charge, you could say, a different type of category of legal category.
It becomes the word is manslaughter rather than murder, so it is a lesser, but there's still some accountability there because a life has been taken, but it's not premeditated.
Right, we call it slaughtering animals as an example, not murdering them. Although, you know, you don't go into the supermarket and say, do you have any murdered chickens? I'm looking for a murdered cow thigh or something, you know. Although I've got a friend that's a chicken farmer, and he definitely calls it, he said he murders the chickens. And actually, he's actually revealed to me a few days ago, he's no longer going to be raising turkeys. He says he just doesn't like to engage in the whole process anymore. And he doesn't want to be a murderer anymore. So this is interesting that suddenly after, well, he's in his mid-50s, and suddenly after all this time on life, he's decided that that's not okay. He doesn't want to engage in that anymore.
It's interesting also if you look at in my part of the world, and I think it's a worldwide trend, that people are starting to realize or elevate to that level. It's not happening instantly, but you'll see now this huge trend. Even the hamburger chains are putting out alternative meat products which aren't coming from animals. And in this country where I live, there's this coming into the consciousness of people that, you know, there's a lot of cruelty in the process of the way we present our food in the supermarket. Behind the scenes, there are slaughterhouses, and it's odd that in just very current here that they've found that the race horses that race in these glorious large events where they gallop around a track, once the horse has outlived its usefulness, it's been found out they just send them off to a slaughterhouse, and hidden cameras have been placed in such slaughterhouses, and the 2 days ago, glorious thoroughbred racehorse is treated terribly and killed in horrific circumstances and cut up and turned into dog food or sold under false pretenses as you know, some other kind of meat. But the thing is, it's all coming out into the light now, and I see that as a sign that the times they are changing, that people are elevating, not instantly, but when you shine the light on these things, it starts people thinking, and you know, and that's what's going on. And I'll go back with what Carolina was saying earlier. The 300th Knowledge Seekers workshop last week was extraordinary in its revelation about you know, how the planet is going to be elevated as a whole. And I'd suggest to everybody, like Carolina has done, and I myself have actually listened to that workshop now, I think twice, and sections of it more, because there's so much in there. It's like a very, very important teaching. So, you know, if you have the time between now and then, just go back and listen to that, because it really answers a lot of questions like Stefania was saying, you know, as a Mojang, you're in an environment of fields that those killing tendencies and all of those lower tendencies, they simply don't exist. And I think Mr. Keshe said that once you're elevated, you simply don't have, the concept of killing just doesn't come into your consciousness. You are at peace. You know, the universal community struggles with the, what is this? What's going on down there? Luckily, they haven't swatted us yet. But, you know, it would be a disturbance for them to know there's this place where killing is just rampant. But the signs are good that people are starting to think about it and change. And you know, that's what I see when I look at the news, and I go, oh, look at that. This is becoming a real issue. People are starting to talk about it openly. Before, nobody talked about it. Nobody cared. The cow disappeared from the paddock, went on a truck somewhere and disappeared off the face of the earth. And magically, at some later stage, it appears in the supermarket shelf wrapped in plastic or whatever and packaged. But now people are looking at that. You know, what is the actual process? It's not pleasant. It's murder.
Yeah, and Flint sent me a message that also, if you think about the vertical people in terms of trees, there's deforestation, for example, in Brazil, and he asks, is that a murder of the vertical people? In a way, yes, definitely. And again, like Doug, you were just saying, the consciousness is changing about all of that. And in spite of the forces are strong to continue the murder, you could say, of the trees and the raping of the planet and all of that kind of stuff, at the same time, there's strong movements that to counter that, especially among the indigenous groups that are sort of leading the way in that regard. But there's a strong the knowledge is getting out of what exactly is going on, and that it may not be the best for all concerned to be going about things in certain ways. So it's just getting it into our consciousness, into our awareness is a big step in itself. Like Peggy mentions in the chat, when I was little, I was told that horses were made into glue. I remember not wanting to use glue and make art projects for a long time after that. So, I mean, how many artists have been discouraged because of finding out that? I remember that I thought that was pretty profound when I was young, and now I hear that they raise horses in Canada and ship them off to a foreign country to be used for meat. And I thought, wow, that's not right. So anyway, there's lots of indiscretions. Let's say we could go on for days on that. I don't want to get into all the details of it, but it's a good example there, Piggy, for sure. It's a classic. So what about, we could maybe briefly talk about the vertical people, and then I think we should probably wrap things up shortly here. I want to get any comments in for people that would like to speak. See, Marinez, you have your microphone open.
Yeah, if I can. I had seen a video on the YouTube. It was, they had been filming in Africa, and there was a female lion, which for some reason loses her children. And then there's a deer who was killed by the lion, the husband, and the baby stays alive, the baby of the deer. And this mother lion adopts this baby deer, and he couldn't eat the baby deer. And she had adopted completely this baby, a baby deer, which had to be fed by milk, probably, and was getting each day very weak. And this lion, the mother lion, was not eating anything because I had to take care of this little thing. Because if he could sleep, some animal could take the small deer and eat it. So the lion didn't eat, the little deer didn't eat, and they were walking and getting both really exhausted, and they were being filled by and she was not eating this little deer, and it was very amazing. Some people said because the lion is used to some animal who is scared and run away, and because this little baby deer doesn't run, she cannot eat it. And some said no, maybe because the lion, the female, is traumatized by losing her child and had adopted this baby deer. And she was dying from hunger. She couldn't walk anymore. And one day and the deer was also dying because the mother was killed. And one day when she was tired, and for one moment another animal came and took the little deer and went away. And she wake up, she gets up, she runs away, she fights, she makes noises like a mother who had lost the child. And then she went away. And they said maybe that's the only way she could survive, because otherwise she was dying and the baby deer was. And they said that the Africans say this sort of things come at the end of the day, at the end of the world, when the lion cannot eat they can live together with this deer without killing the deer. So it was really shocking for me that how she could adopt her food. She could adopt this baby deer, which is good meat, and even though she was dying. And maybe the way, because I had seen that before, this video, when I saw these because I don't have too much chance to see animals at my own. And when I saw the mosquitoes, it was like there was a line between me and the mosquito. It was like if you had chosen my house. So it's for a reason. It was like a line between me, and how could I kill a person I have a line with? Like I was feeling him like myself, like a small myself. So I could never kill this animal because he's invited to come to see my home and to eat something, whatever it is. So she was on her right. And I was really feeling this line between me and this small mosquito. And it's not because it was small. The relation was lower. And now it's the family member. I just thought of it when you talked tonight. And so there is a chance that they understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's very interesting, Marinus. Thank you for the stories.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have something they'd like to say, or some insights they'd like to bring out?
Every day is the Sabbath, and every day is a holy day. So it's not one day a week, it's every day. Every day we wake begin our activities, we should think it's a holy day and start it with some reflection about how we're going to behave, and try and keep all these commandments as much as we can every day.
Very good, Doug. I thought maybe we should add a commandment, thou shalt not be cruel. I guess it's included in shall not murder and steal and other such things. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question on adultery. How come if a woman takes a lover and so on, she is adulterer, but a man who takes a mistress is not adulterer.
They're both adulterers, and as we
Yeah.
said, as Carolina explained, Marinez, as Caroline explained in great detail about that, you should review exactly what she said. And it's not to do with that relationship, because if they weren't lying to start with, then there's no adultery. If they're not lying, there's no adultery, and everybody knows up front what's going on. It's all clear, and there's no adultery. If you start lying, then it becomes adultery and all kinds of stuff, and he and they and her and all of this stuff. Just review back what Carolina said about that, and I think we got it covered.
And also the ideas of loving somebody is not adultery, just a physical intercourse is, right? Like if a man loves another woman but never went to bed with her, it's okay. No, it's not adultery.
Were they lying?
No, they just don't say anything.
Nobody lied. Well, if you don't say something, that's lying. If you're holding back on something, then that's lying. Yes, sure. Sounds like someone was lying there. If they're, if you're in a relationship with someone and you feel their attention goes to someone else, then at that moment there's a break in your relationship. That's when it's time to get real and start being truthful, not 3 days later after that little glance has blossomed out into a full relationship with somebody else, and someone didn't know about it, because they should have already known about it. It should have already come up, should have already been dealt with, and everything honest and being straightforward and no lies. Otherwise, as soon as there's lies, then it becomes adultery and everything else starts falling in place from there. But in a way, adultery is not, it depends, we're looking at this not in the physicality level. This is what you're trying to bring into it, Marinez. It's not about the physicality, about the act of intercourse. It's about the soul level. And the soul doesn't, doesn't have the faculties for intercourse in a way.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have something else they want to bring up? I'd like to kind of wrap things up here, if not. Lots of interesting comments have come out, and some great insights, actually. And Caroline is so good at keeping us on track here. Really, really appreciate her input. But we're able to carry on pretty good on our own as well at this point. Everyone has a piece of the puzzle, which is keeps reminding us to go back to our roots in terms of the soul level and try to perceive things from that perspective, and to elevate ourselves to that perspective. Anything else? Going once? Going twice? Thank you, everyone, for being part of the 94th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace for Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. Thanks, Flint, for running things in the background, and Peggy for doing things in the background, and for everybody for participating. It takes everyone to make these workshops work, and every little bit helps in that, making it a fuller picture. All right. Thank we, as Jalal would say. I don't think he's here today, or he probably would say something. And I think that'll wrap it up for today. You can, if you like, attend the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group with me. That's Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central European Time, or 10 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesday today for me. All right, I believe that's it for now. Thank you, Flint, for taking us out.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye, everyone, and see you next time around.
Bye for now.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. KesheFoundation.org/donate